In this example, a rock is thrown upward on Mars with a velocity of 10 meters per second. Its height in meters after t seconds is given by the equation. Find the average velocity between each time period. Notice that in each time period, we're starting with 1 second, and the only thing that's changing is the ending time value. So we could use the average velocity formula 4 separate times and just find each of those individually, and there's nothing wrong with that. But since they're all starting at the same time interval, it might be easier to do one average velocity formula using a generic value starting at 1 and then ending at 1 plus h, where h is the time period. So let's try that. Let's use this generic value in the average velocity formula. Recall that average velocity is simply the change in position over the change in time. So y evaluated at the second time interval, which in this case is 1 plus h, minus y evaluated at the first time interval, 1, all over 1 plus h minus 1. So plugging this into the actual equation for y, we have 10 times 1 plus h minus 1.86 times 1 plus h squared. That's y evaluated at 1 plus h. We're going to subtract that from y evaluated at 1, which is 10 times 1 minus 1.86 times 1 squared, all over 1 plus h minus 1 is simply h. From here, we'll go through and clean up the numerator. We get 10 plus 10h minus 1.86, square the binomial, and second set of brackets. Canceling, we end up with 6.28h minus 1.86h squared over h, and that gives us 6.28 minus 1.86h. This is assuming, of course, that h is not 0, can't divide by 0. So this is our generic formula for the average velocity for any h value, keeping in mind that h is the time elapsed. So in our first time interval, 1 to 2 seconds, h is 2 minus 1, or 1 second. So average velocity is 6.28 minus 1.86 times 1, our h value. That gives us 4.42 meters per second. Our next time interval was from 1 to 1.1. So in this case, h is 1.1 minus 1, or 0.1. Average velocity here will be 6.28 minus 1.86 times 0.1. That gives us 6.094 meters per second. And then we're going from 1 second to 1.01 seconds. Here h would be 0.01. So the average velocity is 6.28 minus 1.86 times 0.01. Plug that into the calculator. And this time we get 6.2614 meters per second. And our next time interval was from 1 second to 1.001. Here, h is 0.001 seconds. Average velocity, 6.28 minus 1.86 times 0.01. Again, going back to the calculator, let's change that h value to 0.001. And this time we get 6.27814 meters per second.